Harry has met someone who is his age, with whom he is in love, and who is in love with him.
A studio broadcast light turned red in London. Across the Atlantic, the morning sun was just hitting the gated estate grounds of Montecito, California. Right now, as you watch this, Prince Harry's biggest secret is finally out. The quiet illusion has completely shattered, and the truth behind what is really happening inside Montecito is officially blowing open. Lady Colin Campbell has just stepped forward with a shocking new revelation that is rocking the British royal family and sending absolute shockwaves across the globe. Prince Harry reportedly has a new girlfriend, a woman who lives right in his immediate California orbit, a woman of money and power, a woman his own age, and someone he is allegedly deeply, wildly in love with. And the way Meghan Markle discovered the truth? It wasn't through a royal aide pulling her into a private room. It wasn't a warning letter. She found the unencrypted text sitting right there on Harry's phone. Let that sink in for a moment. Now, before you brush this off as just another internet rumor, look at who is making these claims. This is Lady Colin Campbell, the veteran royal biographer who wrote the books on Princess Diana, the Queen Mother, and the Sussexes themselves. She has insider sources stretching from Buckingham Palace to Beverly Hills, and direct connections into the highest levels of the United States government. When she sat down on the Dan Wootton Uncensored podcast, she looked straight at the camera and uttered 4 words that make top-tier royal lawyers freeze in their tracks. "You cannot sue me." She chose her words like a master chess grandmaster. Every phrase was calculated. Every legal caveat was placed deliberately to protect against a lawsuit, while exposing a private reality that was never supposed to see the light of day. What happened next? Who this mysterious Montecito woman reportedly is? How Meghan allegedly reacted when she read those private messages? And what all of this means for a marriage that is currently falling apart behind closed doors is coming up right now, and none of it is what you expect. If this institutional shift surprises you, subscribe before we get into what happened next. Hi viewers, do you believe Prince Harry is genuinely happier now than he was 5 years ago? Type yes or no in the comments right now. Look at the precise environment where this explosive news landed. Montecito is not just a zip code, it is an ultra-exclusive enclave where privacy is bought alongside multi-million-dollar real estate, and discretion is the ultimate social currency. The unnamed woman at the center of Lady C's revelation is described as living directly in or around that exact rarefied orbit. She is financially secure, deeply connected, and moves in circles of power without needing to chase public fame. She isn't looking for a reality camera crew. She isn't trying to build a lifestyle consumer brand. She is someone who understands quiet discretion because she already possesses everything the public spotlight promises. When Lady C spoke on that broadcast, she was exceptionally precise. She repeatedly used conditional phrasing. She emphasized legal disclaimers. She noted that she deliberately refrained from using specific sensationalized labels, but she painted a complete, undeniable portrait of a real, hidden relationship operating entirely outside of a heavily public marriage. Then she smiled. She suggested that someone should probably fetch a bottle of champagne to calm everyone down. That is her style. Controlled, devastating, deadly precise. When journalist Maureen Callahan pressed for further details in a follow-up conversation, the picture got even sharper. Callahan pointed out a single detail that completely changes the timeline of everything you've been watching unfold publicly, over the past 12 months. We do not know how long this connection has actually been going on. Think about what that single observation means. If this secret relationship is not a recent development, then every separate schedule, every solo appearance, and every mile of distance visible to the public eye starts to look completely different. The pieces rearrange themselves, the pattern sharpens into something far more uncomfortable. The public was told one story about independent professional branding, but the paper trail and the private logs told another. To understand how Prince Harry arrived at this explosive turning point, you have to look past the California sun and examine the foundational records of his life. You have to look at the severe psychological weight of his past relationships. Long before California, long before streaming contracts and brand deals, there was Chelsea Davy. She was Prince Harry's first major long-term romance, lasting 7 years. Raised in Zimbabwe, she was laid back, completely unimpressed by royal formality, and allowed him to breathe away from the palace atmosphere. She did not want the spotlight. She actively avoided public intrusion. In his official court testimonies against British newspaper publishers, Prince Harry described under oath how extreme media intrusion destroyed that relationship. He detailed discovering tracking devices on her vehicles. He described private arguments becoming national front-page news. He used the word nightmare. He spoke of intense paranoia, constant suspicion, and losing a genuine, grounding connection because the environment surrounding his life made normal love impossible. Then came Cressida Bonus, where once again, the relentless pressure made lasting love impossible. When Prince Harry met Meghan Markle, he believed he had finally found someone willing to stand alongside him to escape that relentless machine. He took an unprecedented leap. He relinquished his official military appointments. He gave up state-funded protection. He walked away from centuries of royal tradition to build something entirely new in America. It was presented as the ultimate romantic sacrifice. But look at what happened next. In escaping the royal cage, they signed massive production deals, gave sit-down tell-all interviews, launched documentary series, and built parallel commercial brands. He traded one form of public scrutiny for another. The cameras never stopped following him. They were simply reframed as content. And that brings us directly back to the shocking revelation issued from London. Lady Colin Campbell did not drop these claims recklessly. She cited sources with connections stretching directly into United States government circles, an extraordinary statement to make on a public platform. When the news broke across social media, the dominant reaction wasn't outrage or shock. The response that racked up thousands of likes was 3 simple words: saw it coming. Why? Because the public had been watching the quiet clues accumulate for over a year. When two people who once claimed they were inseparable start living visibly separate lives, people notice. When a husband repeatedly flies back to Britain alone, a country he once claimed was too dangerous for his family, observers ask why. The fairy tale narrative has officially collapsed. Prince Harry once stood on the world stage and declared he had found his forever person. But patterns in families have a haunting way of repeating across generations. Is he now living through the exact same marital breakdown that defined his father's early life? Has he realized that changing his postcode didn't change his fundamental search for genuine warmth away from the cameras? A formal record filed under private security protocols in Santa Barbara County confirms that travel schedules were altered weeks before any media outlets noticed the growing distance. And right at the center of those schedule shifts was an unencrypted sequence of private text messages that changed a marriage forever in a single morning. to uncover how a fairy tale marriage devolved into parallel lives, confidential cellular billing logs, and legal disclaimers, you have to look back at the original paper trail that started it all. Every breakdown leaves a record. Every promise signed in public creates an invisible paper trail in private. In early 2020, as the couple announced their departure from formal royal duties, a joint commercial compact was filed. It was a binding agreement that laid the foundation for their brand. The document outlined total alignment, equal representation, a unified public image designed to showcase two people against the world. Prince Harry invested everything he had into that original agreement. He relinquished his official military appointments. He gave up state-funded security protocols. He surrendered generational residency rights at Frogmore Cottage. It was an immense, irreversible sacrifice. He believed he was buying total freedom. He thought he was protecting his home from the relentless machine that broke his past relationships. But look at what quietly happened in the paper trail by early 2025. Corporate registry filings in Delaware and California revealed a sudden, calculated structural shift. New commercial entities were registered, but this time they were not registered jointly. Individual corporate entities were established under separate management structures. Individual legal teams were retained. Separate public relations firms were brought in to manage individual media releases. The unified front was quietly dismantled on paper, long before the public noticed the growing physical distance. Then came the double standards. Look at the public appearances across that 12-month span. Meghan Markle was seen everywhere, building an independent public identity. She walked the red carpets alone. She attended high-profile galas in Los Angeles. She spoke at diplomatic summits in Geneva. She traveled to Chicago for individual commercial ventures. She appeared at children's hospital fundraisers, charity pledge dinners, and tribute events. Every appearance was executed with absolute precision by her own independent team. Meanwhile, Prince Harry's public presence was systematically shifted back towards solitary international travel and veteran initiatives. And then, Paris happened. During Paris Fashion Week, a video clip surfaced on social media that stunned royal observers. Meghan was filmed in the back of a luxury chauffeured vehicle, relaxing with her feet up, recording the illuminated city streets as the car drove through the night. Internet sleuths and geographical analysts quickly cross-referenced the vehicle's exact route. The car was traveling directly past the entrance of the Pont de l'Alma tunnel, the exact site where Princess Diana lost her life in 1997. Prince Harry has spent decades speaking publicly about the profound psychological trauma of that location. He has stated under oath that stories involving high-speed cars, photographers, and Parisian nights haunt his daily existence. Yet there was his wife, filming her shoes in the back of a car, passing that exact tunnel, posting it as a casual travel story. Her team later issued a statement claiming she had simply not realized where she was. Let me ask you directly, do you truly believe that explanation? Or does it feel like a terrifying glimpse into a growing disconnect inside that home? Now, looking at these parallel tracks, what do you think drove this shift? Type brand if you believe it was purely a commercial pivot. Type distance if you see it as a personal realignment. Or type strategy if you think both sides planned this all along. The distance was no longer just professional. It was deeply personal. When Lady C dropped her bombshell revelation, she didn't just mention an unnamed woman. She dropped a crucial detail about her background that made insiders freeze. This woman does not exist on the margins of society. She does not seek online notoriety. She is a woman of significant independent wealth and real power. someone who holds high-level connections stretching into United States government circles, someone who moves effortlessly inside Montecito's most exclusive, guarded enclaves. She is someone who understands discretion because she lives in the exact same rarefied world. An internal communication log, filed under private security protocols in London, revealed that during Prince Harry's frequent trips back to the United Kingdom, no accommodation requests were made at any family-controlled royal estates. He was staying entirely in private, unlisted locations. He was meeting with former trusted associates without his wife's team present. He appeared noticeably lighter in spirit during those solo visits. Why? Because he was stepping outside the high-pressure content machine that his life in California had become. He had traded the institutional cage of Buckingham Palace for a commercial cage in Montecito, but as the corporate filings separated, his private life was quietly finding a new anchor. A secondary briefing from insiders confirmed that travel schedules were altered weeks before the press caught wind of the distance. And behind those altered schedules was a paper trail that was about to blow the entire story wide open. Let's look at the hard data, the flight logs, the calendar entries, the undeniable digital footprint. Between October 2025 and May 2026, private flight manifests at Santa Barbara Airport recorded an unprecedented shift in domestic and international travel. Two principals who had previously shared a single security detail and a unified schedule were suddenly logged on completely separate itineraries. At one point, tabloids and observers noted that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle had not been seen together publicly for more than 40 consecutive days. 40 days. For a couple that built their entire public brand on being inseparable, 40 days of absolute public silence is not an oversight. It is a deliberate, structural boundary. While Meghan was walking red carpets in Los Angeles and attending charity galas alone, Harry was quietly boarding long-haul flights back to London. He made multiple visits back to the United Kingdom. He arrived without his wife. He arrived without his children. He returned to a country he had once publicly declared unsafe for his family. Yet every time he landed on British soil, reporters noted that he looked markedly different. Guarded, yes, but unburdened. What was pulling him back? Was it nostalgia for his past life? Or was it a desperate need to step outside the curated performance of Montecito? Look at the psychological pattern repeating itself. In his landmark court cases against the British media, Prince Harry spoke under oath about his 7-year relationship with Chelsea Davy. He described how the constant, suffocating surveillance created an environment of relentless paranoia. He spoke of private phone calls being intercepted, tracking devices attached to vehicles, and private arguments splashed across front pages. He used the word nightmare. He admitted that the intrusive environment ultimately destroyed his chance at a normal life with a woman he deeply loved. History was repeating itself, but with a terrifying twist. In California, the intrusion was no longer coming from telephoto lenses hiding in the bushes. It was coming from the very commercial ecosystem he had helped build. The Netflix cameras, the Spotify microphones, the constant requirement to turn personal struggle into global media content. He had escaped one palace, only to build another gilded cage, and inside that new cage, quiet pressure was building. In early 2026, a long-standing foundation itinerary was abruptly altered. Staff members were informed just 4 hours before a scheduled joint departure that Prince Harry would not be attending a major public appearance alongside his wife. The official reason given was conflicting personal commitments. Behind closed doors, the atmosphere was chaotic. Advisors were scrambling to manage the narrative, but the paper trail was already accumulating. Security personnel logged separate movements. Private cellular billing records reflected late-night communications originating from an unlisted secondary location less than 4 miles from the main Montecito residence. The communications were not directed to media executives. They were not directed to public relations reps. They were directed to a woman of his own age, living inside that gated enclave, who offered him the one thing his public life could never provide: total, unscripted silence. When two people stop sharing a schedule, they stop sharing a life. And when an unencrypted phone search in Montecito brought those private communications into the light, the carefully constructed public story collapsed in a single morning. The stage was set for a confrontation that no public relations firm could ever contain. The discovery did not happen under dramatic studio lights or behind the velvet ropes of a royal gala. It happened in the quiet, sterile privacy of a Montecito living room as the morning sun hit the gated grounds. According to Lady Colin Campbell's extensive source network, the sequence of events was swift, silent, and entirely undeniable. A shared mobile device had been left unencrypted on a polished marble kitchen island. A sequence of preview notifications suddenly popped up on the illuminated screen. Text messages, direct, intimate, unvarnished communications originating from a local Montecito contact. Meghan Markle picked up the phone. She scrolled through the unencrypted thread. She read every single line. Let that sink in for a moment. In a single instant, 4 years of carefully orchestrated public messaging dissolved into thin air. The grand narrative of the ultimate romantic partnership, two against the world, standing shoulder to shoulder, against ancient royal institutions and global media conglomerates, was shattered by raw, unencrypted text messages sitting on a countertop. The primary motive behind this quiet shift was not financial gain. It was not brand expansion or corporate repositioning. It was personal survival. It was a desperate search for quiet relief from an environment that had turned every single human moment into a monetized media event. When news of Lady C's explosive podcast broadcast reached major social media platforms, the public reaction was unlike any previous royal scandal in modern history. There was no fierce division. There was no frantic taking of sides or emotional defensiveness. Across comment sections, message boards, and international broadcast summaries, the overwhelming consensus was condensed into 3 sharp, telling words: saw it coming. Viewers and royal watchers had already been observing the slow, quiet disintegration in real time for over 12 long months. They had seen the separate flight itineraries, the solo red carpet appearances, and the solitary journeys across the Atlantic. The public did not need an official press statement to understand that the foundation had already fractured. Consider the terrifying generational parallel unfolding right before our eyes. Decades earlier, King Charles found himself trapped inside a high-profile, highly scrutinized marriage that had completely run its course. He was locked inside a gilded palace, expected to project flawless public unity to the world, while desperately seeking genuine warmth, comfort, and understanding in a private connection that the public was never supposed to see. Prince Harry had spent his entire adult life vowing to break that exact generational curse. He left his homeland. He gave up his official duties. He surrendered his royal protection. He relocated across an entire ocean to escape his father's fate. Yet here he was, walking down the exact same heartbreaking road in a different zip code. Inside the Montecito residence, the immediate confrontation was not a loud, emotional shouting match. It was handled with the cold, calculated precision of an international corporate restructuring. High-level legal advisors and crisis public relations representatives were alerted almost immediately. Formal operational boundaries were drawn. Legal leverage was established behind closed doors. During a tense emergency conference call between bi-coastal legal teams, an advisor stepped forward to state the core institutional reality aloud. If the original promise was built on shared protection, and that protection no longer exists, the contract is already void. The room went dead silent. An advisor explicitly warned both principals that any sudden public admissions, emotional social media posts, or volatile outbursts would trigger immediate, catastrophic contractual reviews across multi-million-dollar streaming and publishing deals. Legal teams in London and Los Angeles were instructed to prepare parallel public response strategies without ever issuing a flat, outright denial that could be disproved later. A quiet, formal instruction was issued to house staff and estate security teams, separate movements, separate living quarters, but rigidly aligned public statements. The marriage was no longer a personal romantic sanctuary. It had become an enterprise managing its own quiet containment. The consequence cascade followed with relentless, undramatized efficiency over the coming months. There was no sudden public announcement posted to Instagram. There was no dramatic joint press conference held on the gravel driveway. Instead, the operational restructuring took place step by step, recorded only in internal security logs, corporate filings, and updated organizational flowcharts. Shared foundation commitments were quietly divided into distinct, independent initiatives. Legal entities managing commercial production rights were assigned individual control officers. Security details were formally split into two independent units, operating on completely isolated radio frequencies. Publicly, the brand maintained its highly polished exterior. Scheduled charity releases were published on time. Digital statements were issued under joint organizational headers. Privately, the operational separation was absolute and total. Look at what this haunting story truly reveals about the cost of living under relentless public scrutiny. Prince Harry relinquished his royal heritage to escape institutional captivity, only to build a secondary cage powered by continuous media output, brand management, and commercial obligations. When a human life is converted into global commercial content, private sanctuary becomes almost impossible to maintain. The very mechanism designed to buy independence ended up destroying the private peace it was meant to protect. The final written outcome was documented in a formal legal resolution draft, passed quietly between advisors. The parties continue to maintain separate professional endeavors and shared foundation commitments while prioritizing the private well-being of their household. Smooth, unemotional legal phrasing. Controlled corporate language designed to pacify investors and media outlets. Behind those polished words lies an undeniable, heartbreaking reality. An empty gravel driveway in Montecito at dusk. A private security vehicle departing quietly toward the coastal highway. A multi-million-dollar mansion governed by master schedules, security logs, and legal disclaimers rather than a shared human life. The documents were signed, the press releases were aligned, and the public story remained intact. But on paper, as in life, the distance had already become permanent. Escape from an institutional environment cannot succeed if the structures of intense scrutiny are simply recreated in a new location. Did this trajectory become inevitable the moment private life was converted into public content, or was there a point where a completely different choice could have been made? If this institutional breakdown gave you a clearer, deeper perspective on the real mechanics operating behind the global headlines, hit the like button right now. Share this video with anyone following royal developments, subscribe for comprehensive breakdowns, and leave your personal answers in the comments below. Because next week, we are going even deeper into the hidden paper trail. A newly leaked financial audit from the Sussexes Charitable Foundation has just surfaced in Delaware, revealing a hidden six-figure wire transfer made to an unlisted private security firm on the exact night of that Montecito phone search. You cannot afford to miss what that secret payment was actually funding, who authorized the transfer behind closed doors, and which high-ranking officials signed off on the non-disclosure agreement. Subscribe right now, turn on notifications, and I will see you in the next story.